The man who built a system you can't escape. Wasn't a king, wasn't a president, wasn't even a dictator. He was a quiet bookkeeper. The kind of guy you'd never notice walking past you on the street. But somehow, he understood power before almost anyone else did. See, he didn't just make money. He redesigned how money moves. And once his system was locked in, there was no exit. You've never met him. But his blueprint still controls how wealth flows even today. His name was John D. Rockefeller. And no, he wasn't just the world's first billionaire. He was the architect of modern capitalism. And once you see how his system actually works, you'll never look at corporations, markets, or even money itself the same way again, because this story isn't really about oil, it's about control. Why this matters now? Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Why do the biggest companies always seem to win? No matter the rules, no matter the crashes, no matter the scandals, why do monopolies disappear only to quietly come back under new names? You've probably noticed the pattern. But here's the thing. It didn't start with big tech. It didn't start with Wall Street. It started here. 1870. Cleveland, Ohio. A quiet bookkeeper filed some paperwork and incorporated a company called Standard Oil. No headlines, no celebration, no big announcement, just paperwork. And within 20 years, he controlled 90% of America's oil. So how did that happen? Let's break it down. The machine builder from chaos to control oil in the 1860s was chaos. Booms, busts, explosions, bankruptcies. Most men chased fast money. Rockefeller didn't. He chased stability. He believed competition was wasteful. That left alone, markets didn't self-correct. They self-destructed. So he asked a dangerous question. What if one system controlled everything? Not ownership, coordination. That distinction matters. He didn't just build refineries. He built pipelines, rail contracts, storage tanks, barrel factories, export routes, banks, insurance, every step, every cost, every choke point. And here's the part most people miss. Rockefeller didn't think markets were fair. He thought they were fragile. In his mind, competition wasn't noble. It was destructive. Too many players led to price wars. Price wars led to bankruptcies. Bankruptcies led to instability. And instability terrified him. Above everything else, Rockefeller wanted one thing: predictability. Predictable costs. Predictable demand. Predictable profits. That obsession didn't come from nowhere. He grew up in a home ruled by uncertainty. A father who disappeared for months at a time, money that arrived suddenly and vanished just as fast. Rockefeller promised himself one thing: his life would never feel like that again. Oil was chaos, so he turned it into a system, not to get rich quickly, but to make volatility impossible. That's the key difference. Rockefeller didn't crush competitors. He absorbed inefficiency. If you couldn't match his prices, you didn't survive. And if you survived long enough, you were invited inside. Imagine Amazon offering to buy your business right after your margins disappear. That was Standard Oil. Nice swarm with the Cleveland Massacre. In 1872, something happened that terrified American industry. In just 90 days, Rockefeller quietly bought 22 of the 26 oil refineries in Cleveland. No violence, no public war, just maths. Prices dropped below competitors' costs, credit dried up, and suddenly, selling to Rockefeller was the only rational choice. The newspapers called it the Cleveland Massacre. But here's the twist. Most of the sellers became wealthy Standard Oil shareholders. Rockefeller didn't eliminate enemies. He converted them. And that's when Washington started paying attention. Here's the psychological brilliance of what he did next. He didn't celebrate. He didn't brag. He didn't draw attention. Standard Oil made itself look boring, quiet, almost invisible. No flashy headquarters, no personal publicity. Rockefeller understood something modern CEOs still rely on today. Power that screams attracts resistance. Power that whispers becomes permanent. While rivals called him ruthless, Rockefeller slept peacefully, convinced he was saving the industry from itself, and that belief made him unstoppable. Railroads, rebates, and the real advantage people say Rockefeller won because of secret railroad rebates. That's only half the story. The real advantage was commitment. Rockefeller could promise 60 train cars per day, every day, for years. Railroads needed that certainty, so they rewarded him. And once transportation became cheap, Standard Oil could undercut everyone. Let me ask you something. Who controls shipping today? Because whoever controls shipping controls prices. The trust. Rockefeller's most dangerous invention. By the 1880s, Standard Oil was technically illegal. States banned companies from owning others across state lines. So Rockefeller's lawyers invented something new. Not a company, a trust. Multiple companies, one brain, one strategy, one balance sheet. The Standard Oil Trust was born, and this changed everything. Because once you control governance, ownership becomes optional. This is the real Rockefeller legacy. This is when he stopped being just a businessman and became a systems thinker. The trust didn't just bypass the law, it forced the law to chase capital. Before Rockefeller, companies adapted to regulation. After Rockefeller, regulations chased corporate structures. Every holding company, conglomerate, and multinational corporation that followed has one ancestor, the Standard Oil Trust. Even antitrust law itself exists because of him, and it still hasn't caught up. The system that survived the illusion of destruction. In 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court finally stepped in. Standard Oil was broken into 34 companies. The public celebrated, monopoly defeated. Except it wasn't, because Rockefeller owned shares in all of them. Competition increased, stock prices exploded, and Rockefeller became the world's first billionaire. Breaking the system multiplied his wealth. Here's the irony. The government thought competition would lower prices, but prices were already falling. Why? Because Standard Oil had already done what competition was supposed to do, eliminate waste. The breakup didn't free consumers, it freed investors. For the first time, everyday Americans could buy pieces of Rockefeller's empire. The public didn't overthrow the system, they bought into it. And that moment quietly shifted capitalism from production-based wealth to ownership-based wealth. A shift that still defines markets today. Rockefeller built a template. Here's what most documentaries miss. Rockefeller wasn't trying to control oil forever. He was building a repeatable model, find chaos, centralize control, eliminate inefficiency, integrate vertically, financialize operations, exit into ownership. That's why big tech controls ecosystems, not products. Why asset managers own everything but manage nothing. Why index funds don't compete. They coordinate. Rockefeller didn't end competition. He made it irrelevant. Why you can't escape the system. You don't buy from Rockefeller, but you still live inside his system. You use his company's descendants. You invest through structures he pioneered. You work inside organizations modeled after his trust. Even anti-monopoly laws operate inside his framework. That's the genius. The system doesn't need him anymore. It runs itself. Your retirement account, your index fund, your pension, your insurance policy, all descendants of the same logic: centralize risk, spread ownership, stabilize returns, reduce chaos. Rockefeller solved uncertainty, but the cost was concentration. And once concentration becomes efficient enough, breaking it feels irresponsible. That's why the system survives. The final irony: Rockefeller gave away over 90% of his wealth. Universities, medicine, public health. He believed God rewarded efficiency, and even in philanthropy, he built foundations that outlived him. Structured, centralized, permanent. Turns out, even generosity can be optimized. Late in life, Rockefeller was asked how much money was enough. His answer? Just a little bit more. Not because he was greedy, but because systems are never finished. They grow, or they decay. Rockefeller understood that better than anyone, and maybe that's the most unsettling part. The question that haunts us is, so what was John D. Rockefeller? A visionary? A villain? A stabilizer? Or a monopolist? Or maybe something more unsettling, a man who realized if you control the system, you don't need to control the people. And the system he built, you're still living inside it. So let me ask you, was Rockefeller a necessary architect of modern prosperity, or the man who quietly eliminated real competition forever? Drop your thoughts below, and if you want to understand how today's financial giants use the same playbook, you already know what to do.